My name is Jeffrey, and at 34, I remain the family black sheep who never stops trying to belong. Last Sunday at dinner, I casually mentioned my excitement about our upcoming family cruise. My sister Amanda snorted, "Oh, you thought you were coming," Dad grinned coldly. "It is for real family." Everyone laughed while I quietly helped clear the plates. They had no idea I would reverse every booking they made. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from and subscribe if you have ever felt excluded by the people who should love you most. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Michigan, the second of 3 children in what appeared to be a perfectly normal American family. But appearances can be deceiving. From my earliest memories, I always felt like the odd one out. While my older sister Amanda and younger brother Brian seemed to naturally fit the mold my parents created, I was always somehow different. My father Jack worked his way up to owning a successful construction business. A practical man with traditional values, he wanted sons who would follow in his footsteps. Brian did just that, showing interest in building things from an early age. I preferred computers and books. Dad never said it directly, but his disappointment was evident in 1,000 small ways. "Jeffrey has his head in the clouds," he would tell relatives at gatherings, as if I were not standing right there. "Not like Brian. Brian has got real potential." My mother Laura was a high school English teacher who paradoxically valued social status above intellectual pursuits. She adored Amanda, her only daughter, who inherited her social grace and popularity. Together they formed an impenetrable alliance of shopping trips and shared secrets. When I asked to join them once when I was 10, Mom patted my head. "This is girl time, Jeffrey. Why do you not go play with your computer?" The pattern of exclusion started small. When I was 7, my parents took Amanda to Disney World while I stayed with my grandparents. "You would not enjoy it, Jeffrey," Mom explained. "Amanda has been doing so well in school, and she really loves princesses." I did not yet understand that achievement was not the real criterion for their attention. By the time I was 12, the preferential treatment had become more obvious. My birthday party was a simple backyard gathering, while Amanda and Brian got elaborate celebrations at adventure parks and roller rinks. When I received straight A's in 9th grade, my accomplishment was acknowledged with a distracted, "That is nice, Jeffrey," while Brian got a new bike for making the football team. The exclusion continued into adulthood. When Amanda got engaged, my parents threw an extravagant party at their country club. When I graduated with honors in computer science, they could not attend because Brian needs help moving that weekend. I still received the family Christmas card where they proudly announced my siblings' accomplishments while mentioning me as an afterthought. Despite all this, I continued trying to gain their acceptance. I followed all the unwritten rules of our family dynamic. I showed up to every holiday, bringing thoughtful gifts. I helped with technical problems, tax preparation, and home repairs. I listened to their stories, laughed at their jokes, and swallowed my objections when casual cruelty was disguised as humor. After college, I found my own path as a software developer, eventually specializing in travel industry applications. The irony was not lost on me when I landed a job working on booking systems for a major cruise line. Finally, I had found a place where my skills were valued. My work colleagues became friends who appreciated me for who I was, not who they wanted me to be. Then came the Instagram post. Amanda shared photos of brochures for a Caribbean cruise, tagging our parents and Brian with the caption, "Planning the ultimate family vacation." I was not tagged. I told myself it must be an oversight. Perhaps they were waiting to surprise me. Maybe they were planning to ask me for advice, since I literally worked in the industry. I prepared a list of insider tips and even put together small travel gift packages for everyone. The Sunday dinner was my chance to show enthusiasm and offer my expertise. I picked up an expensive bottle of wine and spent hours baking my grandmother Rose's famous apple pie from scratch. I dressed in the button-down shirt Mom had given me 2 Christmases ago that still had the tags on. I practiced casual conversation topics in my car before ringing the doorbell. I truly believed this might be the turning point in our relationship. After 34 years, perhaps they were finally ready to include me as an equal member of the family. Sunday dinners at my parents' suburban home have been a tradition since Amanda moved back to town 5 years ago. They usually follow the same rigid format. Dad grills something expensive while discussing sports with Brian. Mom and Amanda prepare side dishes while gossiping about neighbors. I am assigned some menial task, like setting the table or refilling drinks. This particular Sunday seemed promising at first. The spring weather was perfect, warm with a gentle breeze carrying the scent of lilacs from Mom's garden. I arrived 15 minutes early, as always. Punctuality was one of Dad's many non-negotiable rules. "Look what the cat dragged in," Dad said when he opened the door, his standard greeting for me for 20 years. He accepted the wine with a cursory glance. French, huh? Getting fancy on us. Mom was more welcoming, at least superficially. "Jeffrey, how thoughtful," she said, taking the pie. "You did not have to go to all that trouble. I already made a cheesecake, but we can put this out too." I noticed she placed my pie on the far corner of the counter, while her cheesecake took center stage on the dining table. A small thing, perhaps, but another tiny paper cut to add to thousands. Amanda arrived with her husband Travis and their 2 children, Madison and Tyler. The kids barely acknowledged me, having been conditioned by years of watching how their mother and grandparents treated me. Brian and his girlfriend Stacy were the last to arrive, making a grand entrance with tales of traffic that had delayed them all of 5 minutes. "Sorry we are late," Brian announced, though they were not actually late. "Stacy wanted to stop for those craft beers you like, Dad." Dad beamed. "Now that is thoughtful. Not like that fancy grape juice Jeffrey brought." I smiled through it all. This was how our family operated. Compliments for others, subtle digs for me. I had learned long ago that defending myself only made things worse. Dinner started pleasantly enough. I deliberately engaged everyone in conversation, asking about their work and hobbies, carefully avoiding any topics that might trigger conflict. I complimented Mom's roast beef, though it was overcooked. I laughed at Dad's recycled jokes. I asked Amanda about her real estate business and Brian about his latest construction project. I was the perfect dinner guest, as I had been trained to be. Then, seeing an opening in the conversation, I casually mentioned the cruise. "I saw the brochures on Instagram," I said, keeping my tone light. "The Caribbean sounds amazing this time of year. I am excited for our big family cruise. Actually, I have some insider tips from work that might help with the planning." The table went silent. Amanda and Brian exchanged glances. Mom suddenly became very interested in rearranging the food on her plate. Dad looked at me with an expression mixing amusement and contempt. Amanda was the first to speak. She snorted derisively, "Oh. You thought you were coming." The words hung in the air for a moment before Dad leaned forward, a cold grin spreading across his face. "It is for real family, Jeffrey." Real family. 2 words that confirmed what I had always suspected, but never wanted to believe. I was not considered real family. The laughter started with Travis, Amanda's husband, then spread to Brian and Stacy. Even Mom chuckled softly, though she had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable. "We thought you would be busy with work," Mom offered weakly. "You know how you are always saying how demanding your job is." "Yeah," Brian added, "and you are not exactly the cruise type, bro. When was the last time you even went swimming?" "Besides," Amanda continued, helping herself to more potatoes, "the ship only had 4 deluxe cabins available on that deck. It worked out perfectly for Mom and Dad, Brian and Stacy and us. Everything happens for a reason." "We will bring you a souvenir," Dad said, as if that made everything fine. I nodded, my face carefully blank as I had learned to keep it through decades of similar moments. Inside, something was breaking, but I would not give them the satisfaction of seeing it. "More salad, anyone?" I asked, standing to collect plates. I moved mechanically through the rest of dinner, helping clear the table, serving Mom's cheesecake while my pie sat untouched, washing dishes while the rest of the family moved to the living room. From the kitchen, I could hear them continuing to discuss cruise plans. Amanda was listing the excursions they had booked. Brian was bragging about the premium drink package Dad had purchased for everyone. Mom was worried about seasickness. Not once did anyone check if I was okay or apologize for the cruel way they had excluded me. When I finally joined them in the living room, they had moved on to a new topic. My exclusion was so unremarkable to them that it did not even merit further discussion. I sat quietly for another hour, nodding and smiling at appropriate intervals, before making an excuse about an early meeting the next day. "You work too hard, Jeffrey," Mom said as I left, as if my professional dedication was a character flaw rather than the one area of my life where I found genuine recognition. Dad barely looked up from the television. "See you next Sunday, if you are not too busy with your computer games." I drove home in silence, no radio, no podcasts, nothing to distract from the hollow feeling expanding in my chest. When I pulled into my apartment complex parking lot, I sat in the car for a long time, replaying the moment over and over. "Oh, you thought you were coming. It is for real family." Those words would change everything. The cruise incident was not an isolated event. As I sat in my car that night, memories flooded back of countless betrayals over the years, each one a deliberate choice by my family to exclude, diminish, or use me. When I was 15, Dad expanded his construction business. Brian, though only 13, was immediately given a symbolic role in the company. Dad had business cards printed with Brian Wilson, Junior Associate, and took him to client meetings. I asked if there might be a place for me in the family business. "This is for people who understand practical work, Jeffrey," Dad explained. "You would hate it. Besides, you have got your computers." By the time I graduated college with my computer science degree, Brian was already being groomed to take over the business despite having no formal education beyond high school. When I developed a database system that could have streamlined Dad's business operations and offered to implement it for free, he declined. "We do not need all that fancy tech stuff. We do fine with paper and pencil." Yet a year later, he hired an expensive consultant to create a similar system after one of his golf buddies recommended it. Amanda's betrayals were more personal. In my sophomore year of high school, I finally connected with someone. Her name was Jenna, a new student who shared my interest in science fiction and programming. We started dating, my first relationship. I was ecstatic and made the mistake of confiding in Amanda. 2 weeks later, Jenna stopped speaking to me. I later learned that Amanda had told her I was emotionally unstable and had problems connecting with people normally. She claimed she was just looking out for Jenna. This pattern continued into adulthood, with Amanda somehow always managing to poison new relationships and friendships by sharing family stories that portrayed me as strange or difficult. When Grandma Rose passed away 5 years ago, she left a modest inheritance to be divided among her grandchildren. Somehow, my share was significantly smaller than what Amanda and Brian received. When I questioned this, Dad became defensive. Grandma knew Amanda has 2 kids to support, and Brian is saving for a house. You make good money with your tech job, and you only have yourself to worry about. I later discovered that they had convinced Grandma to change her will, suggesting I had no real need for the money. The cruise, I realized with a sudden clarity, was being partially funded by this inheritance money that should have been equally mine. Brian's betrayals were more straightforward. When he was starting his contracting business, he asked to borrow $15,000 from me for equipment. I gave it to him without hesitation, drawn up as a formal loan with a generous repayment plan. 6 months later, when I inquired about the first payment, he laughed. "Come on, Jeffrey, we are family. Besides, think of all the free construction work you will get when you buy a house someday." I never bought a house. I never got a penny back. When I brought it up at a family gathering, Dad pulled me aside. "Why are you trying to create problems? Brian has a family to support. You owe this family after all we have done for you." All they had done for me. I reflected on what that actually meant. I was the free tech support, the tax preparer, the airport chauffeur, the moving helper, the pet sitter when they went on vacations I was not invited to join. Mom's betrayals were perhaps the most painful because they came wrapped in a veneer of love. She would make promises she had no intention of keeping. She would claim to advocate for me behind closed doors, but never actually stand up for me in the moment. She would call just to complain about Dad or Amanda, using me as her emotional support while offering none in return. When I got my first major promotion 3 years ago, Mom promised a special celebration dinner. She canceled at the last minute because Amanda is having trouble with Travis and needs me. My promotion was never mentioned again. No makeup dinner was ever scheduled. Last Christmas, I spent hours selecting thoughtful gifts for everyone. Dad got premium tickets to a sports event he had mentioned wanting to attend. Mom received a first edition of her favorite novel from college. Amanda got a spa package. Brian received high-end tools. I spent nearly a month's salary in total. In return, I received a generic gift card and a sweater in the wrong size. The gift card still had the receipt attached, showing it had been purchased the day before Christmas, clearly an afterthought. These memories swirled in my mind as I finally left my car and entered my apartment. I opened my laptop, almost on autopilot, and searched for evidence of what I already suspected. Sure enough, in our shared family Google Calendar, there it was. Family cruise planning meeting, scheduled 3 months ago. I had not been invited. I checked my email spam folder, thinking perhaps they had invited me and it got lost. Nothing. I looked through my text messages. Not a word about any cruise. I had been deliberately excluded from the beginning. Then I found something that broke the last threads of my restraint. In my work as a travel systems developer, I had access to a back-end portal for major cruise bookings. Out of curiosity, I searched for my father's name. The booking appeared immediately, confirmation number and all. 5 cabins, not 4. The 5th was for my parents' friends, the Hendersons. They had room for family friends, but not for their own son. I scrolled through the details of the booking. Premium drink packages for everyone. Excursions at every port. Special dining reservations. The works. And there, under the payment information, was the final insult. The cruise had been partially paid for with points from a credit card I had helped my father set up and optimize for travel rewards. I pulled out an old photo album from my closet, something I rarely looked at because the memories were too painful. Birthdays through the years told the story plainly. Ages 1 through 5. Big parties, genuine smiles from my parents as they held me. Ages 6 through 12. Progressively smaller celebrations, my parents increasingly disengaged. Teenage years. Group photos where I stood awkwardly on the periphery, already being edged out of the frame. In the most recent family photo, taken at Amanda's daughter's baptism, I had been placed so far at the edge that the photographer had accidentally cropped half of me out of the shot. Nobody had bothered to retake it. The next morning, instead of going to work, I called in sick for the first time in 3 years. I spent the day methodically searching for every scrap of evidence of my family's pattern of exclusion and betrayal. I found old email, text messages, social media posts. A clear pattern emerged of plans made without me, celebrations I was informed about after the fact, if at all. And then I found it. An email thread my mother had accidentally included me on several weeks ago before quickly sending a follow-up "please ignore the previous email" message. I had not opened it at the time, respecting her privacy. Now I did. The thread was about the cruise planning. My name appeared several times. "Do you think we need to invite Jeffrey?" Mom had written. "Why bother?" Amanda replied. "He will just make it awkward like he always does." Remember how he kept trying to tell those boring stories about his work on the last family trip. "Besides," Dad added, "he probably cannot afford it and I am not subsidizing him. The Hendersons are much more fun anyway." Mom's response: "I feel a little bad, but you are right. It will be more relaxing without having to worry about including him. I will make it up to him somehow." The thread continued with more casual cruelty, each message driving home what I had always suspected but never wanted to face. I was an obligation to them, not a beloved family member. They actively preferred my absence to my presence. Something changed in me as I read those words. A lifetime of trying to earn love from people who were incapable of giving it suddenly seemed like the most futile endeavor imaginable. Years of second chances and turned cheeks had led me exactly nowhere. It was time for them to understand exactly what they were throwing away. That night I did not sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad, methodically listing every slight, every exclusion, every mockery I had endured. The list ran to multiple pages. Seeing it all written down in black and white stripped away the last of my rationalizations. This was not normal family friction. This was not tough love. This was systematic emotional abuse that had shaped my entire life. The question was, what would I do about it? I had 3 options as I saw it. Option 1. Continue as always, swallowing my pain and trying fruitlessly to win their approval. Option 2. Cut them off completely, walk away, and try to heal on my own. Option 3. Make them understand, just once, how it felt to be excluded and humiliated. As dawn broke, I made my decision. I would show them exactly what they were losing when they chose to treat me as an outsider. I would use my particular skills to teach them a lesson they would never forget. My position at the cruise line software division gave me access to booking systems that most people would never see. I was not in customer service, but I understood the architecture of the reservation platform better than anyone. There were backdoors built into the system for testing and troubleshooting that few people knew about. I opened my laptop and began. First, I located my father's full booking information. 5 cabins, 8 adults, 2 children. Paid with a combination of credit card and reward points. Final payment completed. Confirmation emails sent. Everything looked perfect on their end. What I did next was technically against company policy, possibly even illegal. I created a shadow cancellation of their entire booking. To the cruise line's main database, everything would still appear confirmed. But when they arrived at the port, nothing would be registered for them. The cabins would show as available. The payments would appear never to have been processed. To ensure my plan worked flawlessly, I redirected their confirmation emails. Any updates or reminders from the cruise line would be filtered through a server I controlled, allowing me to maintain the illusion that everything was proceeding normally. I even generated fake updated itineraries and sent them from a spoofed cruise line address, adding special, complimentary upgrades to further excite them. The technical aspects were the easy part. The harder question was ethical. Was I becoming just like them by doing this? Was I stooping to their level? I wrestled with this through another sleepless night. By morning, I had rationalized my decision. This was not random cruelty, as theirs had been. This was a deliberate lesson, a controlled consequence for decades of mistreatment. They would experience inconvenience and embarrassment, but nothing would be permanently damaged except perhaps their sense of superiority. I was not trying to hurt them. I was trying to wake them up. To ensure I would witness the fallout, I created a script that would forward all family group chat messages to me, even if they tried to create a new chat without me. I set up alerts for any calls or messages between family members on the day of departure. I even booked a room at the hotel overlooking the cruise terminal, where I could potentially watch them arrive with their luggage, confident and excited, unaware of what awaited them. For the next week, I maintained my normal routine. I went to work, came home, watched TV as if nothing had changed. I attended the next Sunday dinner, smiling pleasantly while they discussed cruise plans in front of me without ever acknowledging the cruelty of it. I have packed 3 formal outfits, Amanda announced. The captain's dinner is supposed to be amazing. I cannot wait for the snorkeling excursion, Brian added. The guy at the travel agency said the reefs are incredible this time of year. Jeffrey, can you pass the potatoes? Mom asked, her only acknowledgement of my presence at the table. I passed the potatoes with a smile. Everything sounds wonderful, I said. You are all going to have such a great time. They mistook my serenity for resignation, never suspecting that I was mentally counting down the hours until their perfect vacation collapsed around them. The night before their departure, I made one final check of all my preparations. Everything was in place. The cruise line systems showed their booking as active, but the shadow cancellation was ready to activate the moment they tried to check in. Their payment had been refunded to a temporary account that would return the money to them after the fact, so they would not lose financially, only emotionally. I packed a small bag for my hotel stay, including binoculars and my best camera with zoom lens. I wanted to document this moment, not out of sadism, but to have concrete evidence if I ever again weakened and began to doubt the reality of their treatment of me. As I set my alarm for 5:00 a.m., the same time they would be waking to head to the airport, I felt a strange calm. Tomorrow would be the beginning of a new phase of my life, one way or another. Either they would finally see me, truly see me, or I would finally accept that they never would and move on accordingly. Both possibilities felt equally liberating. I awoke before my alarm, adrenaline already coursing through my veins. According to the detailed itinerary I had access to, my family would be heading to the airport by 6:30 a.m. for their 9:00 a.m. flight to Miami, where they would stay one night before boarding the cruise ship the following morning. From my hotel room overlooking the airport, I set up my laptop and monitoring systems. I had created a special alert that would notify me when any of their phones entered the airport geofence. At precisely 6:43 a.m., the first alert pinged. They were right on schedule. The family group chat, which excluded me but which I could now monitor, buzzed with excitement. Amanda just parked. So excited I could barely sleep. Brian, we are 5 minutes out. Save us spots in line. Mom, remember to have your passports and booking confirmations ready. Dad, I printed extras of everything just in case. This is going to be the vacation of a lifetime. I sipped my coffee, feeling oddly detached as I watched their excitement build. A part of me still wondered if I was making a terrible mistake, if this revenge would cost me whatever fragile connection I still had with my family. Another part knew that connection was an illusion I needed to shatter for my own sanity. At 7:22 a.m., the chat exploded. Amanda, something is wrong with our booking. The check-in agent cannot find our reservation. Brian, same here. They are saying our tickets do not exist in the system. Dad, this is ridiculous. I have the confirmation right here. How can they not have it in their system? Mom, Jack, do not yell at the agent. It is not her fault. Dad, I am not yelling. I just want what we paid for. I switched to the airport security cameras I had access to through a back door in their system. I could see them now, gathered around the check-in counter, my father's face reddening as he gesticulated at the increasingly uncomfortable airline employee. Through my industry connections, I had arranged for their particular check-in agent to be someone new, someone who would not have the experience or authority to override the system issues. She kept shaking her head and pointing at her screen, clearly trying to explain that she could not check in passengers for flights that did not exist in the system. A supervisor was called over. More head shaking. My father pulled out his phone, presumably to show the confirmation emails I had carefully manipulated. The supervisor took the phone, studied it, then pointed to something on the screen. I knew exactly what he was pointing to. The subtle discrepancy in the confirmation number format that any experienced eye would catch. The group chat continued to update in real time. Dad, this is a disaster. They are saying our confirmations are not valid. Amanda, how is this possible? We have been planning this for months. Brian, Dad, did you book through some sketchy discount site? Dad, no. I used the official cruise line portal. The same one Jeffrey helped me set up for our vacation last year. Wait a minute. My heart skipped a beat. I had not expected him to make the connection so quickly. Dad, has anyone tried calling Jeffrey this morning? Mom, why would we call Jeffrey? Dad, because he works for the cruise line. Because he knows about this stuff. Because maybe he can help fix it. A moment of silence in the chat. Then, Amanda, you think we should ask for his help after not inviting him? Brian, he has access to the booking systems. He could probably fix this in 5 minutes. Mom, I do not think he would sabotage our vacation just because we did not invite him. Jeffrey is not like that. If only she knew how wrong she was. The Jeffrey they thought they knew, the doormat who accepted endless mistreatment with a smile, had ceased to exist the moment I read those emails. I watched them huddle together for a conference. Then my phone rang. Dad's name appeared on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. He tried again. And again. Meanwhile, I received an alert that Mom was trying to call the cruise line directly. I had anticipated this and had temporarily routed the main customer service number for their specific area code to a disconnected line. She would be getting a "all circuits are busy" message. The next phase began exactly as I had planned. They gave up on the airline counter and moved to a seating area to regroup. Dad was on his laptop, trying to access his booking through the cruise website. Of course, his login had been temporarily disabled due to suspicious activity. Mom was on the phone with their credit card company, probably trying to verify the payments had gone through. Amanda was texting furiously, likely reaching out to friends with travel industry connections. Brian just looked shell-shocked. I allowed myself a small smile. For the first time in their lives, my family was experiencing the helplessness and exclusion they had subjected me to for decades. By 9:30 a.m., they had missed their flight and were in full crisis mode. The group chat was a stream of panic and accusations. "Dad, this whole vacation is ruined. $12,000 down the drain. Amanda, the kids are crying." This was supposed to be their big summer adventure. "Brian, has anyone been able to reach the cruise line yet? All I get is busy signals." "Mom, I got through to someone, but they say they have no record of our booking. How is this possible? Dad, I am going to sue them. This is fraud." Then the message I had been waiting for. "Dad, I am calling Jeffrey again. Even if he cannot fix it, he can tell us who to talk to." This time, I answered on the third ring. "Hello," I said, injecting just the right note of sleepy confusion in my voice, as if I had just woken up. "Jeffrey, thank God," Dad said, his voice tight with stress. "We have a major problem with our cruise bookings. Nothing is showing up in the system. We are stuck at the airport. The flight, the cruise, everything is just gone." "That sounds awful," I replied calmly. "What a terrible thing to happen." Yes, it is a nightmare," he continued, not noticing my lack of surprise. "Look, I know you work with their systems. Can you help us? Make some calls. This is an emergency." I paused, letting the silence stretch uncomfortably. "Jeffrey, are you there?" Dad demanded. "I am here," I said. "I am just trying to understand something. Is this the same cruise you specifically did not invite me to? The one that is for real family only?" Another long silence. I could almost see the blood draining from his face as realization dawned. "What did you do?" he whispered. "I simply made sure the cruise booking reflected the true family situation," I replied. "Since I am not real family, as you put it, it seemed wrong for me to be connected to the booking in any way. So I removed my access credentials from the family account. Unfortunately, it seems that caused some technical issues with the reservation itself. You sabotaged our vacation because your feelings were hurt." His voice rose in disbelief. "Do you have any idea how childish that is? Almost as childish as deliberately excluding your son from a family vacation and then mocking him to his face about it," I countered. "Or discussing in email how much more fun it would be with friends than with your own child." "You read our emails," now he sounded outraged. "That is an invasion of privacy." "Yes, the email thread Mom accidentally included me on before asking me to ignore it. The one where you all discussed how boring and awkward I am, and how you would rather invite friends than subsidize your own son on a family vacation." Another silence, this one longer. "We need to talk about this," he finally said, his voice subdued. "But right now, we have a serious problem. The kids are upset, your mother is stressed, we are all stuck at the airport. Whatever issues you have with us, do you really want to punish the children too?" Classic dad, trying to manipulate me with guilt. But I was immune now. "I do not believe I am punishing anyone," I said coolly. I am simply declining to use my professional resources to support an event I was explicitly told I am not part of. That seems entirely reasonable. Jeffrey, please, his voice cracked slightly. We made a mistake. We should have invited you. I admit that. But please do not ruin this for everyone. Help us fix this. I will consider it, I said. But first, I would like everyone to understand exactly how it feels to be excluded and humiliated. Put me on speakerphone with everyone right now. I heard rustling, then the ambient noise of the airport filled my ear. You are on speaker, Dad said stiffly. Hello, everyone, I said, picturing their faces gathered around the phone. I understand you are having trouble with your family vacation. The one you planned without me, paid for partially with inheritance money that should have been equally mine, and then mockingly informed me about at Sunday dinner. The one for real family. Silence. Jeffrey, Mom's voice trembled. We did not mean to hurt you. Lying does not become you, Mom, I replied. I have read the emails. You meant exactly to hurt me, or at minimum, you simply did not care if you did. Now you are experiencing a small fraction of the exclusion I have felt my entire life. So this is revenge, Amanda spat. Real mature. Think of it more as a learning opportunity, I said. For 34 years, I have tried to be part of this family. I have forgiven countless slights and cruelties. I have shown up, again and again, hoping for basic decency and inclusion. And you have consistently shown me that I do not matter. Today, you are finally experiencing consequences for your choices. What do you want from us? Brian asked, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. I want you to go home, I said. Cancel your vacation plans. Spend the next week thinking about how you have treated me all these years. If, after honest reflection, you believe there might be a path forward for us as a genuine family, I am willing to have that conversation. If not, we can make our separation official and permanent, which might be best for everyone. You cannot be serious, Dad sputtered. Cancel everything. After all the money and planning. The money will be refunded, I assured him. I am not a thief. As for the planning, perhaps you should have planned to include your entire family from the beginning. With that, I hung up. Within seconds, my phone exploded with calls and messages, which I ignored. The family group chat became a firestorm of reactions, ranging from outrage to disbelief to the beginning glimmers of recognition. Amanda. I cannot believe he would do this to us. This is psychotic. Brian. Did anyone else know Jeffrey could even do something like this? I thought he just fixed websites or whatever. Mom. Jack, you should not have said that thing about real family last week. I told you it was cruel. Dad. Oh, so this is my fault. We all agreed not to invite him. We all said the cruise would be more fun without him. Amanda. He was never supposed to know that. From my hotel window, I could see them now, huddled together near the terminal exit, gesturing frantically as they argued. Their perfect vacation was in shambles. Their perception of me as the harmless family doormat was shattered forever. And I, for the first time in my adult life, felt truly free. 3 days passed. I returned to work, explaining to my supervisor that I had needed the personal day for a family emergency, which was not entirely untrue. I did my job with renewed focus and energy. Several colleagues commented on my improved mood, not realizing it stemmed from finally standing up for myself against decades of mistreatment. I had received 64 missed calls and over 100 text messages from family members, ranging from furious accusations to tearful pleas. I read them all but responded to none. I was waiting for something specific, and on the evening of the third day, it arrived. A text from Dad. "We need to talk. All of us. As a family. Our house. Tomorrow at 7 p.m. Interesting that he was still claiming the concept of family after everything that had happened. Even more interesting that they were finally inviting me to something. I replied with a single word. Fine. The next evening, I arrived at my parents' house exactly on time. I had dressed carefully in a crisp blue suit that projected confidence and success, not the casual clothes I usually wore to family gatherings. I brought nothing, no wine, no dessert. Those peace offerings belonged to the old Jeffrey. Mom opened the door, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. She moved to hug me, but stopped when I did not open my arms to reciprocate. "Everyone is in the dining room," she said quietly. I nodded and walked past her without a word. The dining room table, usually set with Mom's best china for family dinners, was bare except for a pitcher of water and glasses. Dad sat at the head of the table, with Amanda and Brian flanking him. Their spouses and children were noticeably absent. "Sit down, Jeffrey," Dad said, gesturing to the empty chair opposite him. His tone lacked its usual command. He seemed smaller somehow, diminished. I remained standing. "I prefer to stand for now," I said. "I believe you wanted to talk." Dad cleared his throat. "What you did was completely out of line. You sabotaged a family vacation, caused emotional distress to everyone including the children, and potentially violated company policies that could get you fired. I hope you realize the seriousness of your actions." Classic Dad, starting with accusations and intimidation. I smiled thinly. "What you all did was completely out of line," I countered. "You excluded me from a family event, mocked me to my face, and have systematically made me feel unwelcome and unwanted for as long as I can remember. I hope you realize the seriousness of your actions." "This is not productive," Mom interjected. "We need to move forward, not just assign blame." "I agree," I said. "But moving forward requires acknowledging the truth of how we got here. So let me be clear. I am not here to apologize. I am here to establish whether there is any foundation for a healthy relationship moving forward." "How can we have a healthy relationship when you pull stunts like this?" Amanda demanded. I turned to face her directly. "You mean as opposed to the healthy relationship, where you tell new friends and girlfriends that I am emotionally unstable? Or the one where you mock me behind my back and to my face? That healthy relationship?" Amanda paled. "I do not know what you're talking about." "I think you do," I replied. "But just in case, I brought evidence." I pulled out my phone and played the recording I had secretly made at the Sunday dinner. Their voices filled the room, cruel and dismissive. "Oh, you thought you were coming. It is for real family." The laughter that followed was even worse. When the recording ended, the silence in the room was deafening. "You recorded us without permission," Brian said weakly. "Yes, I did," I acknowledged. "After years of gaslighting, I needed proof for myself as much as for you. I needed to be able to listen to it and remind myself that I was not imagining or exaggerating the way you treat me." I pulled out a folder and removed several printed emails, sliding them across the table. "I also have these. The cruise planning emails where you discuss how much more fun it will be without me, how I am awkward and boring, and how you would rather invite friends than me." Mom started crying softly. Dad stared at the emails, his jaw working silently. "Jeffrey," Brian finally spoke, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "I think we all realize we have not always been fair to you." "Not always been fair," I repeated incredulously. "Brian, You borrowed $15,000 from me with no intention of ever paying it back. Dad, you excluded me from the family business despite my qualifications, then hired an outside consultant to do what I offered to do for free. Amanda, you have actively sabotaged my relationships. Mom, you have consistently chosen peace over standing up for me, even when you knew I was being mistreated. I looked at each of them in turn. This is not about fairness. This is about a systematic pattern of emotional abuse that has defined my entire life. Abuse is a very strong word, Dad protested. Yes, it is, I agreed. And it is the accurate one. I have spent the last week documenting the pattern, consulting with a therapist, and reflecting on our family dynamics. What you have done to me over decades meets the clinical definition of emotional abuse. That landed like a bomb. The word abuse was not one our family used. We disguised cruelty as teasing, exclusion as practicality, and emotional neglect as independence. We did not mean to hurt you, Mom whispered. Intention is not magic, Mom, I said more gently. The impact of your actions is not lessened because you did not intend the consequences. And frankly, some of this was clearly intentional. You cannot claim that excluding me from a family cruise and then mocking me about it was an accident. Dad slumped in his chair, suddenly looking every one of his 62 years. What do you want from us, Jeffrey? I want acknowledgement, I said firmly. I want each of you to recognize how you have treated me and take responsibility for it. No excuses, no defensiveness. Just honest acknowledgement. And then what? Amanda asked. Then we decide if there is anything worth salvaging here. I am not interested in continuing a relationship based on the dynamics of the past. I deserve better. I require better. One by one, they began to speak. Mom went first, acknowledging her failure to protect me and her complicity in my exclusion. Her words seemed genuine, if long overdue. Brian followed, admitting to the loan and other instances where he had taken advantage of me. I guess I never really thought about how it felt from your side, he concluded lamely. Amanda was the most resistant, but eventually, under the weight of the evidence and the shifting family dynamic, she too admitted to her role in my isolation. Dad went last. His acknowledgement was the hardest one and the most incomplete. He accepted responsibility for some actions while justifying others. It was, I supposed, as much as I could expect from a man who had spent a lifetime seeing me as fundamentally different and somehow less than my siblings. So where does this leave us? Dad finally asked. That depends on what happens next, I replied. Words are easy. Changes in behavior are what matter. I am willing to attempt a new relationship with each of you individually, on my terms. That means respectful communication, inclusion in family events if I choose to attend, and zero tolerance for the kind of behavior I have documented. It also means some form of restitution. Restitution, Dad repeated. Like money. In some cases, yes, I said. Brian owes me $15,000 plus interest. My portion of Grandma's inheritance should be equalized with what Amanda and Brian received. But mostly, I mean making amends through actions that demonstrate genuine change. They exchanged glances, a family habit that had always made me feel like an outsider. But this time, I did not feel excluded. I felt powerful. We need to think about all this, Dad said finally. Take all the time you need, I replied, moving toward the door. But understand that the old Jeffrey, the one who accepted scraps of attention and affection, is gone. I will only accept genuine change and honest connection moving forward. As I reached the door, Mom called out, "Will we see you on Sunday for dinner?" I turned back. "No," I said simply. "I will not be attending family dinners until I see concrete evidence that things have changed. The ball is in your court now." With that, I walked out, closing the door firmly behind me. For the first time in my life, I had set boundaries with my family and meant them. Whether those boundaries would lead to healing or separation remained to be seen, but either way, I would no longer be diminished by the people who should have loved me most. 6 months have passed since the cruise that never happened. 6 months of profound change, painful growth, and unexpected healing. The journey has not been easy or straightforward, but it has been transformative in ways I never imagined possible. After our confrontation, I maintained minimal contact with my family for several weeks. I needed space to process 34 years of normalized mistreatment and to build a life centered on self-respect rather than desperate attempts to win approval. I began regular sessions with Dr. Hayward, a therapist specializing in family trauma. Those Tuesday evening appointments became sacred time for unraveling the complex web of beliefs and behaviors that had defined my relationships for so long. The first breakthrough came when Dr. Hayward asked a simple question. Who are the people in your life who make you feel valued just as you are? I realized with a start that none of them were blood relatives. There was Marcus from my coding meetup group, who always sought my opinion and genuinely listened to my responses. There was Zoe from the apartment across the hall, who brought me soup when I was sick and invited me to her gallery openings. There was my team at work, who respected my expertise and celebrated my successes. These people, I realized, were my true family, chosen and choosing, connected by mutual respect and genuine affection rather than obligation or DNA. Family is not just who you are related to, Dr. Hayward explained. Family is who makes you feel at home in your own skin. This revelation gave me permission to invest more deeply in these healthy relationships, while creating space for my biological family to demonstrate whether they were capable of change. Some showed more promise than others. Mom was the first to reach out, about 3 weeks after our confrontation. She asked if we could meet for coffee, just the two of us. At a neutral cafe downtown, she handed me an envelope containing an equal share of Grandma Rose's inheritance money, taken from her own savings. "I should have done this years ago," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I knew it was wrong when it happened, but I was too afraid of your father's reaction to stand up for what was right." It was the first time I could remember my mother taking concrete action to make amends. It was not the money that mattered, but the acknowledgement and the willingness to make a tangible sacrifice to begin healing our relationship. Our coffee meetings became a weekly tradition. Sometimes we talked about difficult past events, sometimes about neutral topics like books or films. Gradually, I began to see my mother as a whole person, flawed and human, neither the perfect mother I had longed for as a child, nor the willfully complicit enabler I had condemned her as in recent years. We were building something new, imperfect but honest. Brian reached out next, with a cashier's check for the full amount of his loan plus interest. "I never thought of it as stealing from you," he confessed when we met at his construction office. "I just always saw you as the successful one, who did not need the money like I did. I never considered that you worked hard for every dollar, just like I do." Our relationship has been slower to rebuild. Too many years of taking without giving have created habits that do not change overnight. But I see genuine effort in the way he now asks about my life, remembers details of conversations, and includes me in decisions. Dad has been the most resistant to change, as I expected. Our interactions remain formal and somewhat strained. He struggles to acknowledge his role in creating our dysfunctional family dynamics, often reverting to justifications and deflections. but even he has shown small signs of growth. He no longer makes dismissive comments about my career or interests. He asks questions instead of making assumptions. And most significantly, he apologized, awkwardly but sincerely, for the real family comment that had been the final straw. "I did not mean it the way it sounded," he said during a tense one-on-one lunch. "But I can see now how it fit into a pattern that made you feel excluded. That was wrong of me." Amanda has made the least progress. She attended one family therapy session, spent most of it defensive and angry, and has since maintained a cold distance. Her husband Travis recently let slip that she feels I got away with ruining their vacation, and resents the new family dynamic where my feelings are suddenly considered important. I maintain minimal, polite contact with her, neither seeking conflict nor accepting mistreatment. Perhaps in time, she will recognize what she has lost through her own choices. The most profound changes, however, have been within myself. I no longer measure my worth by their approval. I speak up immediately when boundaries are crossed. I have learned to distinguish between genuine connection and the hollow performance of family obligation. I have discovered that I am worthy of respect and capable of enforcing that worthiness. My chosen family has expanded in beautiful ways. Marcus introduced me to his hiking group, where I met Sarah, a wildlife photographer with a quick wit and genuine interest in people. Our friendship has gradually evolved into something deeper, built on mutual respect and appreciation. She recently asked if I would join her on an assignment to photograph national parks across the country, a 3-week adventure I would never have considered in my previous life of constant family availability. I said yes without hesitation. Zoe connected me with a volunteer program teaching coding to underserved high school students. Saturdays spent mentoring young people who remind me of my younger self, bright and sometimes uncertain of their place in the world, have become a highlight of my week. Last month, my parents hosted a small gathering for Dad's birthday. I attended briefly, bringing a thoughtful but not extravagant gift. The difference from previous family events was palpable. My opinions were solicited and actually listened to. My professional accomplishments were acknowledged rather than minimized. When Amanda made a slightly cutting remark about my new haircut, Mom immediately stepped in. "That was unkind, Amanda. Please apologize to your brother." The old family dynamics tried to reassert themselves throughout the evening, but the new boundaries held. I left after 2 hours, not from hurt or exclusion, but simply because I had made plans with friends for later. As I said my goodbyes, Dad awkwardly mentioned that they were considering a family vacation next summer, if you might be interested in joining us. "I will think about it," I said honestly. And I will, evaluating the invitation based on continued evidence of change, rather than desperate hope or obligation. The greatest lesson I have learned through all of this is that real love is not something you have to continuously earn or beg for. Real love sees you, values you, and treats you with consistency and respect. Sometimes that love comes from the family you are born into. Sometimes it comes from the family you create. Often it is a complex mixture of both. What matters is not the source of that love, but its quality. Is it conditional or constant? Does it diminish or elevate? Does it require you to make yourself smaller or encourage you to become more fully yourself? For too many years, I accepted the crumbs of conditional acknowledgement as though they were a feast of love. I believed that blood connection entitled people to unlimited chances to hurt me. I mistook longing for belonging. Now I know better. I deserve to be seen, to be included, to be treated with basic dignity and respect. We all do. And sometimes, the most loving thing we can do for ourselves is to stand firm in that knowledge, even when it means drawing hard boundaries with the people we once desperately hoped would love us well. This is not the end of my story with my family, merely the beginning of a new chapter. Whether it leads to genuine reconciliation or amicable distance remains to be seen. But whatever happens, I know that I will be okay. More than okay, I will thrive, surrounded by people who value me exactly as I am. If you have ever felt excluded, diminished, or invisible within your own family, know that you are not alone. Your worth is not determined by their ability to see it. Your future is not limited by their perception of you. And your capacity for connection and belonging is not defined by those who failed to nurture it. Sometimes the greatest act of self-love is simply to say, "No more. I deserve better," and then to go out and create that better life, one boundary, one authentic connection, one act of self-respect at a time. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? How did you maintain your resolve when they tried to pull you back into old patterns? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they too deserve to be treated with respect and dignity, especially by those closest to them. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, you are worthy of real, unconditional love.